Ukraine war, inside Bakhmut, the battered Donbas city holding off Putin's troops. His body lay where he fell alone, flat on his back, under a weak September sun. He was killed around noon on September 24 during hours of intense shelling in the city of Bakhmut in Ukraine's eastern Donbas region. We came across him by chance, and learned later that his name was Andriy Yablonsky, and he was 52. A woman in a red coat screamed in anguish nearby, as she sheltered in a doorway. This was Andriy's sister. "What should I do for my brother?" she wailed. For more than an hour he couldn't be moved, because there was no let up in the barrage. Andriy's life was spent saving others. He worked as an ambulance driver and was killed not far from his depot, his body punctured by shrapnel. His name has now been added to the list of Russia's victims in Bakhmut. More than 70 civilians have been killed by enemy shelling in recent months, according to the local governor Pavlo Kirilenko. "We probably heard the shell that killed Andriy." For hours that morning the city center echoed to the whistle and deafening shriek of incoming shells from Russian forces, and the thud of outgoing rounds from the Ukrainians. An artillery duel was playing out around us, the retorts so fast it was hard to keep track. "It's like badminton," a Ukrainian colleague said. A dozen civilians huddled by a wall, ducking and flinching, as one explosion followed another. Their prized possessions were stuffed into travel bags at their feet. They were waiting for a one-man evacuation team to get them out of the city. Before the Russian invasion in February, Bakhmut was home to around 70,000 people, and was known for its salt mines and sparkling wine production. Now it is battered, and largely lifeless. Irina, a 48-year-old in a bright yellow jacket, kept watch nervously over her 14-year-old daughter Yelizaveta, who seemed to sink into her hoodie. Mother and daughter sometimes flinched in unison at the sounds of battle. Otherwise, the teenager busied herself with a pet carrier. Irina's reluctant departure from her hometown was for the sake of her child. "It's very hard," she told me, "very difficult. I wouldn't want to leave this place except for the war. The main thing is to save the life of my daughter. We are also taking our cat with us, who has had kittens, so that we all survive." "And will she be able to come back someday?" "I want to return to Bakhmut," she replied. "Our armed forces will take the territories back and everything will be all right." This statement is both a prayer and an article of faith for many in Ukraine. More than 6 months into the invasion, Russia's stated aim, repeated recently by President Putin, is to gain control of all of Donbas. Bakhmut is a stumbling block. Russian forces could use a victory here after their recent humiliating defeats in northeastern Ukraine. For now, Ukrainian troops are holding them off at the eastern edge of this strategic city. However the battle for Bakhmut may end, Irina and Yelizaveta have a more immediate worry: surviving to the end of the day. They gather up their belongings hurriedly and scramble into the back of a van, driven by a volunteer called Serhiy Ivanov. The 39-year-old, who wears a helmet and sunglasses, used to be a drummer in a rock band. These days he is part of a network called Rescue Now and seems fueled by adrenaline. A tattoo in Latin on his right arm reads Carpe Diem, or seize the day. For months now, he's been doing just that, snatching civilians from harm's way in frontline areas. He plays down the risk to his life on these daily missions. "I think it's usual for me," he says, "and usual for any Ukrainian. I feel happy when I see smiles on these faces. I love life, I love Ukraine, and I love people." With that, he sets off at speed along bumpy back roads. For Irina and her daughter, it's the first stage of a journey to the relative safety of the capital, Kiev.